Everyone wants their growth to be orderly, but that does not happen on its own. If you leave it to do it on its own, it's going to be chaotic. My guest today works with dental practices to help them grow in an orderly way. His advice applies to anybody, and he's going to share his insights on how to do it. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Usually, not always, but usually that's what they want. And care is better when the provider owns the practice because that's when they're going to have the most freedom to make the clinical decisions they think are best. It's different when somebody else owns it and is calling the shots. Usually, sometimes, eventually, their agenda starts to creep in. It's more for the provider to think about. Let's just see if we can keep it simple and keep it privately owned. My guest today is Frank Curtin. Frank is a seasoned management consultant with a distinguished tenure at IBM. He's been imparting his knowledge for 25 years. With a primary focus on collaborating closely with dentists for the past 9 years, he holds invaluable insights into fostering success in managing a dental practice. In partnership with his close associate, Dr. Forrest Bryant, Frank established High Speed Consulting. Their innovative approach, driven by the TSG method business management system, he's positively impacted over 250 businesses and continues to expand its reach. Frank earned his MBA from The Ohio State University's Fisher College of Business. Frank, thanks for taking some time to come on Practice Care.
Thanks for having me, Carl. Appreciate it.
We will leave off to the side that I'm a Wolverine. We'll tackle that one another day. I thought I'd say that to you when we were on air before releasing that one, but we'll put that aside to another day.
That's okay.
Yeah, I love this topic because it gets to, I think, do you have a plan or not? There's a lot more to it than that. But planning seems to work out better than winging it. And so I'm hoping that this topic will kind of bring some of that to light. I want to start, though, with where I start with every guest, and that is the bio I just read was short. I asked for short. So tell us more about you. I'm curious. We talked the other day, but you've got a good story about how you arrived at doing what you're doing. So I'd love to hear some snippets of it.
Sure. Yeah. So, I had my tenure at IBM and I was doing the management consulting work. And when I left IBM because I wanted to be a dad, I was on the road 45 weeks a year. I would leave on Sunday, come back on Thursday. And I remember, my
Fair
son,
request. Yeah.
he was about 5 years old doing the little soccer thing. I was there on a Saturday morning and the dads were there coaching the kids for their little game, and my son was kind of on the sideline there for a second, and I was on the sidelines, but not as a coach. And he looked up at me and he's like going, "Hey, Dad, how come you don't coach?" And I was just like, "Oh,
you told me that the other day, and it's still every time, yeah,
dagger to the heart." And I just like going, you know
yes.
what, I do want to. And then I started, had the conversation with my wife. I'm like going, I don't think this road warrior thing is really, best for us with what we want to do. I want to be involved in my child's life. My wife's like, I feel like a single parent during the week, and she's right. So for us, it was a good move to do that. So
and after 5 million airline miles and hotel points, it's like,
oh, yeah,
what's another 100,000?
Points are great, but it just puts you more on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like even on the weeks I was home, it's like I really wasn't home.
Yeah,
we just used the points to go somewhere and travel.
True.
So there were a lot of wonderful benefits from doing that. I had some great people to work with back then and got a lot of education. I walked in as a dummy and I came out much, much better off than I was when I walked in. It's amazing how much I thought I knew until I got there and I realized how much I didn't know.
Yeah.
Even after coming with the MBA, come off with a little bit of this, I've got this education, therefore I must know quite a bit. And then I get in the real world.
You do, just none of it's useful in the real world.
Exactly. It wasn't practical. It was
That's how I felt.
And I had my little attitude, if you will, but I learned through that time, through that experience, and just got humbled along the way. And so that was a very eye-opening for me, but it was awesome at the same time because then I started to realize how businesses actually work. We were working with Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 type companies. IBM being big, they typically worked with large businesses. When I got in on my own and started doing consulting for small businesses, I was doing just a lot of strategy work, but I didn't have any tools to work with or anything like that. So, I'd read the Rockefeller Habits, which is now Scaling Up 2.0. And then I had also read Traction when it had come out. So about 2011, 2012, I decided I was going to pursue the EOS version of that a little stronger because I liked that they had tools. And Gino had done a really good job of kind of putting this together. So I learned
it makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
I became an EOS consultant. So I was an EOS implementer. I was working with them probably up until almost 2017. Um, Along that journey, I started helping a lot of real estate companies because that was an area that I was plugged into through
Hmm.
masterminds and various other things. And I met a dental mastermind owner who wanted me to come in and implement EOS for them. And that was in 2014. And so in 2015, he had asked me after we'd gotten this implementation, he's like, "Can you do this for dentists?" I'm like, "Sure, I can do it for anybody."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's business is business, right? I'm
Hmm.
agnostic to the industry. I just need to know the problems that they all experience are very, very similar,
Hmm.
right? Business problems are business problems, generally because you have people that do things or fail to do things.
Right.
And then you got people that are really good, and you got people that aren't so good, and you got people who are trained and people who aren't trained. Like business is business,
Business.
right?
Yeah.
It's really what it boils
There's
down
some
to.
core bedrock parts of it that
Absolutely.
travel
There's the
everywhere.
fundamentals.
Right.
And so I started doing it for the dental practices, and we were starting to have some really good successes.
Hmm.
As I was progressing with the dental practices, what I found though was that with the US model, we struggled a little bit to get the teams on board because nobody in the dental space had any leadership experience whatsoever. They had no
Yeah.
management experience. It was just doctors say, "I do." Right.
Hmm.
And which is not uncommon in small business. Anybody that's a
Yeah.
technician or a practitioner and they start their own business, it could be a plumbing company, HVAC, it could be anything, right?
Yeah.
It's typically owner says I do because they don't know better,
Yeah.
right? They don't have the systems in place to do these sorts of things. And so as they start to grow, they added a lot of chaos to the business because you've got a lot more people and
Yeah.
people introduce new dynamics as you bring them in, right? Hence the chaos.
Life's easy, but for the people.
It is. If it just weren't for the people, business would be
Yeah.
so easy.
So easy.
And then so along that way, so I had to start expanding on it. And so I started developing out leadership programs and things like that. And it got to the point where, EOS, I'd spoken with them on kind of what I was doing, and they had mentioned, they're going, "That's really, we prefer that people implement it with the raw state." And he goes, "If you're going to do what you're doing, don't call it that."
Mm.
So that's where I came up with the TSG method. TSG method is a culmination of my experience with IBM, part of my MBA learnings, part of my working with clients prior to having any tools doing strategic work.
Hmm.
Uh, there's a blend of some of the Rockefeller habits or the scaling up. There's a blend of some of EOS, and it's just I tried to pick and choose the things that I thought would work in the dental space
Okay.
to do that. And so what I found was it actually works pretty well in all small business. So it's not just that, it works
Okay.
in medical practice, legal. It works in basically companies that run anywhere from about 5 or 6 employees up to about 50 to 60 employees.
And does it
Uh,
care if it's professional services versus manufacturing versus
it does
retail?
not.
Okay.
It does not. No,
Okay.
not the only time it would ever really be like if it were somebody that is an industry that already has fairly trained up leaders but need a system. Well, then EOS is fantastic
Right.
because they've already got the leadership training. They're already there, and it works really well. It's when you get into organizations where there is zero leadership training that it requires a lot more.
Yeah.
And it also requires a lot of communications, so things like, DISC and Colby and various other types of assessments that sort of
Hmm.
help you determine how to communicate together. So that culminated into me starting to do a heavy push on the dental space.
Hmm.
And from 2015 up until today, we really work hard on the dental space, if you will, primarily because I feel they're in bad need of this sort of thing.
Hmm.
These doctors, they go to school, they learn to become great doctors, great dentists, and so forth, but they're not taught how to run a business.
No.
And when and
Or
when they take
leadership or
yeah, they're
yeah.
not taught that stuff. It's not, and so I've come to discover that now when I can implement a system, we can start seeing, a lot of orderly growth coming into play. You can
Hmm.
start to see teams develop. You see doctors get more free time. They're not doing this. You want to work to live, not
Hmm.
live to work, right?
Yeah.
And it's that concept. And a lot of these guys that when I come in, it's because they're working their 50 plus hours a week, and when they go home, the business doesn't turn off and
Hmm.
this sort of thing. And every big problem falls on them. Every small problem falls on them.
Hmm.
It's one of those sort of dynamics. So being able to do that has just been really exciting for me. I enjoy it because I know what they're about to embark on, this
Yeah.
journey that they're going to go on. And it's kind of fun to see when the light switch goes on.
Yeah, I bet.
You can see it like when they're starting to get it and understand. They're
Yeah.
like, oh wow. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. So
Yeah, that's
that
awesome.
is it's the journey that got me to where I am today, sitting here talking.
Gotcha. And now you do this all day long. Excellent. So we're talking about orderly growth versus chaotic growth. In your experience, just give us a taste of what each one looks like.
Gotcha. So typically, when somebody starts a business and then they start to add people to that practice or that
Hmm.
business, if you will, you bring the good, the bad, and the ugly with each person,
Hmm.
right? They show up with them. What most business owners tend to do when they're small is they don't really have any defined systems. And so when they bring you in, they show you what they want you to do. But we know it takes 7 times to hear things the first time, right?
Right.
Marketing 101, right? This is
Yeah.
why radio ads hit you as much as they do, or TV ads, as they hit you multiple times to get you to
Hmm.
that awareness. Well, that little voice in our head when we're new into a practice and all that, that's racing. And there's so much excitement and anxiety. There's like, am I going to do
Hmm.
well? I like the people here. This is all wonderful. And they're all that. And then you're teaching them a whole bunch of things.
Hmm.
And they're supposed to remember it exactly as you told them.
Right.
And because it's easy to us, we think it's going to be easy to them.
Hmm.
And then they're not catching on as fast. And little
Hmm.
by little, the reprimands start coming. And all of a sudden, this once thought of as this great place that I'm working at now, I'm not feeling so comfortable anymore.
So it's the game of
Or
operator on steroids.
pretty much, yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And
Okay.
so where the chaos comes in is, people come in with their way, like the
Hmm.
things they believe they think they know. And then we have our way that we want them to do something, but
Hmm.
we don't have it clearly defined. And so
Hmm.
I show them one way, and then you come along and they ask you, hey, Carl, how did I do that again? Frank showed me this. Can you show me how to do this again?
Hmm.
But you have a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And each of us start to diverge off of
Hmm.
the standard, if you will. And now we have a couple of standards. We have Carl standard, Frank standard, and whoever else we have hired in
Yeah.
there and has learned. And they start taking their own personal mental shortcuts. We are all guilty of this. We do it in our own lives. When somebody
Hmm.
shows us how to do something and we start to do it multiple times, we start to eliminate the things that we think that are wasted. Like if we don't think it's necessary, we just like, cut that out. We don't need
Yeah.
that. That's not necessarily fully aware that downstream somewhere somebody needs that,
Yeah.
but I'm not aware of it, so I don't worry about it.
Right.
Right? We see this
Right.
a lot in the dental practices where clinicians take shortcuts on notes, on the note
Okay.
take. Right, like that's one of the
Yeah.
things that we notice a number of people do. Well, the front desk, they really have a difficult time checking people out if the
Hmm.
notes aren't really detailed and clear. But
Right.
to the clinician's point, or to their their daily activity at their whirlwind, if you will,
Right.
they feel like they don't have a whole lot of time to sit down and be overly detailed. So they try to use their mental acuity to say, hey, this is what I'm going to tell you. That should be enough,
Right.
assuming that everybody can get it. Like these are examples of things that can cause that chaos amongst that. The other thing is behaviors. People don't have well-defined core values in the organization. They say, "Oh yeah, we got a great culture." And I'm like, "Oh great, yeah. What's your turnover like?" We lose about half of everybody every year. I'm like, "Oh, that's a great culture."
Hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
do you know what the definition of culture is? It's
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
just not understanding. They're like, well, everybody seems happy. I'm like, well, happy people don't
Do you
usually
ever
live.
ask them when they say that, what is your culture? And then ask
Oh,
anybody
I'll
who
ask.
works there, please, what is our culture here? And unless you hear the identical verbiage, you're not there, right? I mean,
Yeah, I noticed that from a cultural perspective, what I'll ask them is a lot of times they have words,
mhm.
right? They'll have some words and they're written down, but I'll like, do you have any evidence that would support this?
Right.
Like, can I see it in the practice? What would that look like in your
Hmm.
practice? Things like that.
Hmm.
And generally speaking, if a company has core values, my first question is, how do you hold people accountable to them?
Hmm.
And there's usually a lack of that. So
Hmm.
accountability in the small business space is another area that's difficult to do when you don't have things well defined.
Yeah.
I don't know what done looks like when I do something. Well, how can I hold you accountable to that as a performance standard?
Right.
What that looks like, right?
Right.
These sorts of things, or how many mistakes are acceptable,
So I'm
right?
hearing the word, like one of the words you're repeating is standard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing communication. I'm hearing um, maybe measuring. How would you know it if you saw it? Are these the seeds of orderly growth?
They absolutely are. You can't manage what you can't measure, right?
Hmm.
And it's not uncommon in small business where the only thing they're looking at are their checkbooks.
Yeah.
And they're looking to see like, can I do this? I don't know how much money is in the checkbook. And
Hmm.
okay, yeah, I guess we can do that. Or that's probably not a good time to do that.
Hmm.
They don't really know what their numbers are. They don't know their ratios. They don't know their percentages. They don't know what is a good production in a
Right.
day by provider type.
So if I asked you, I asked you, what does chaotic growth look like? What are the essentials of what orderly growth looks like?
So on an orderly growth, it would be somebody where you clearly define accountability. So people have two standards that you can hold them to. Attitude and behavior is one,
Okay.
performance is the other.
Okay.
That's what makes up for an employee. If I don't have clear systems in place, well, then how can I hold them accountable to performance? I
Hmm.
can expect, right? What I allow to persist will exist. I can expect them to do it the way they think they know.
Hmm.
And that may or may not be what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
right? So if I put the systems in place, I'm more likely to get that repeatable action, which means I'm going to get a consistent experience on the performance side, which allows my customers, my patients to get that consistent experience.
Right.
On the behavior and attitude, if I allow people to do things, if I let them get away with things, then everybody has something to point to. So now the attitudes and behaviors now, I really don't have any way to police that up.
Okay.
So in an orderly, constructive way, I've got clearly defined core values. Like this is your expected behavior. These are the expectations of you. So in an orderly growth fashion, I have clear expectations of what you can expect from me and what I can expect from you, because it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
If you hired me, I need to know what you expect of me, but I also need to know what can I expect from you.
Hmm.
Like, are you going to give me the tools and resources I need to the best to what your budgets can afford? Am I
Hmm.
getting the best within budget, or am I getting the cheapest stuff you can give me, or figure it out kind of
Yeah.
attitude? Like, what am I getting from this employer too? Because the employee is hoping that I'm going to get everything I need to succeed, and then they want to deliver. I
Yeah.
don't believe people come to an organization with the intention of screwing them over or being a poor performer. I think they come there with excitement.
Hmm.
Most of the time, when you hear people talk about their new jobs, especially
Yeah.
like
It's
before the
true.
day they start, they're all amped up.
Hmm.
Oh, it's this. I met the people. They're really nice. They got this super nice this. They got this. And they're talking about it in a very positive way.
Hmm.
And in an orderly growth fashion, on day one, this person is onboarded properly.
All right. So let's keep going with that because the next question is what are the essential ingredients to grow in an orderly way? So keep going with what
So
you're
now that we
saying.
got clear systems, I need to onboard people and I need to make it clear to them. Here's what I expect from you in the first week, the first
Hmm.
month, first 90 days, your first year. This is what I'm looking to do with you. This is
Hmm.
what I hope you're able to accomplish.
Hmm.
General rule of thumb, somebody should be micromanaged on day one, self-managed by day 90 in an orderly business,
Makes
right?
sense. Yeah. Yeah.
And in order for that to happen, I have to have structure behind what they're going to do.
Hmm.
They need to have clear, I like to call it the roles and responsibility chart. They need to have clear understanding of who does what in the organization. So anything I need, I know where to go.
Hmm.
It might be out of my domain, but who do I go to rather than chasing around like chickens with heads cut off and
Hmm.
just asking anybody? So I need a clear onboarding process with all new people.
Right.
I need a clear retraining process, meaning what are the things that we need to touch up on? Because over time, our mental shortcuts are going
Hmm.
to start to kick in. And
Mm.
sometimes I need to recenter everybody,
Okay.
especially if I have a staff that might be 2, 3, 4 years into their journey or longer.
Yeah.
They're going to start forming habits, and those habits may or may not be in alignment with the ABC way.
Hmm.
When I have standards, then ABC Dental is the ABC Dental way when I have standards.
Is there a particular area of a practice you find yourself starting with? We've been
So
talking a lot about the people. Is that where you start?
it typically starts with understanding what your structure is, because
Okay.
accountability, you can't have accountability without structure. If in structure is the lead in to giving you that clear vision of where do we have responsibility in the organization?
Hmm.
And then when I take that responsibility from that perspective, what roles are those people responsible for performing?
Hmm.
And then what are the measures that I can look to see if if they're doing it in a healthy way, or are
Hmm.
they falling short of something? Or are they
Hmm.
smashing it and just really crushing it and doing really well?
Hmm.
Some positions in some organizations are super easy to see.
Okay.
Salesman. I can see in a salesman, what are their numbers look like?
Yeah.
Right. So some measures are just easy to see.
Hmm.
Activity, on the other hand, is not so easy to
It's
see.
hard.
Right. Like how many calls they made and stuff. Now, yeah, they can document it down and do stuff like that, but it's different,
Yeah.
right? Well, how about in a dental practice? There are some key things that we're looking at. And sometimes people have a failure to understand what should I be measuring to determine something that this person has in their control.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when I hear about the doctors, they think, oh, doctors production, they're in control. Like, no, they're not. They don't do the scheduling. They
Yeah.
write treatment plans, but they don't do the scheduling.
Yeah.
Right.
So what is
So
an example of measuring? I'll pick hygienist. I don't know.
sure.
I'm just pick
Mhm.
somebody out of thin air. Like what would be an example of what you would measure there?
So two things there in hygiene, right? I
Mhm.
want to measure their production because they do have control over the production. They're the ones that are responsible for the recare. The new patients, no, but they do on the recare, right?
Mhm.
So if they're getting that, so production, but an even more important one is production per hour,
Okay.
right? And then I like to distinguish, is it production per hour or production per hour paid? I like to distinguish both
Mhm. Okay.
because I need to know what is their effective benefit to the business.
Mhm.
And then also, they're also a contributor in treatment planning because this is where the exams typically come in, is in the hygiene world. So an
Okay.
exam would be done there by a doctor coming in, and they're there to reinforce whatever that treatment plan was the doctor would
Okay.
say. Right. So it's important for a hygienist to be on the same page with the doctors and
Mhm.
that they trust one another that everything they're doing is ethical. Right.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for a hygienist to support a treatment plan if they don't believe the doctor is doing ethical care.
Yeah.
Well, I think 99.9% of them do.
Yeah.
They're in
Yeah.
it. They tell
Most
you
people are
what you
born
do.
ethically. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
agree. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there are a few out there, but it's like in
Yes.
the law space too. They talk about
Anywhere.
that lawyers get a bad rap, but there's like 2 to 3% of them that are
Yeah.
doing some shady, sketchy things, and
Hmm.
everybody else is just working really hard and pounding it and getting real results for people.
Right.
And
Right.
but they get bad results. So it's same thing. I hear in the dental space, I hear a lot of times with the patient community, if you will, often feel like people are being told they need things they don't need
Right.
because they don't feel pain.
Right. So
Well,
with
you
the
tell
with the owner, so the
me.
dentist, the doctor, whoever it is, what's expected of them? Like the essential ingredients. And in the back of my mind is I'm thinking, today you work 45 hours a week or 50 hours a week, and your hands are in, you're always with patients. Well, you're being asked to do a lot more now, right? Because you got to measure people, you have to establish systems, you got to make sure they continue to work well. You're either going to add time to that 45 hours or 50 hours. You got to find it something like what's expected of them for all of
Ideally,
this that we're talking about to work.
so now when we put that structure in place, it requires leadership. So it
Mm,
requires somebody needs to lead each functional area. And what a good owner would do is delegate down the responsibilities of each function to that functional leader. So that
hmm.
me as a dentist, I'm not worried about what hygiene production is.
Hmm.
I've got a lead hygienist who's worried about that. I'm not worried about collections. I've got a front desk person handling that. I'm not worried about the doctor satisfaction working with the patients and working with the dental assistants because I got dental assistants who are managing and measuring that.
Hmm.
So by having a leadership team in place and developing them, right? So
Hmm.
as if you're going to create an organization, your responsibility is to the people that you bring into that organization.
Hmm.
You owe them that, whether you believe it or not. You
Hmm.
because this is where they're getting their sustenance too. So I tell
Hmm.
doctors this all the time. The second you hire that first person, where it's you plus somebody, anybody,
Hmm.
that business is theirs too,
Hmm.
right? You want them to feel like this is part of me because this is where I get the money that allows me to live my life.
Hmm.
So I should care about what that looks like.
Hmm.
Well, the only way I'm going to care like that is if some owner is going to make me feel like I should and not demand it from me,
Yeah.
but lead me in down that road through
Right.
leadership. Make me
Right.
feel like I'm part of something big and special and
Hmm.
make me feel special for being part of the contributions that are growing this thing to whatever size it becomes.
Right.
And that's each and every individual. Well, you
Right.
can't do that if it's just a mandated dictatorship that's just, I tell you everything to do and you just do what I say.
Yeah.
You can't be barking at people constantly either.
Hmm.
Leading is involving a lot of questions. So as owners, I want to ask people I'm trying to find out from them, what do you actually know? And then I'm going to encourage you to participate with that knowledge.
Yeah.
I want you to come forward with things. I don't want you to sit back and hold back. And when you have ideas, I want to hear you. I want to listen to you. I'm not just
Hmm.
going to dismiss you. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly not going to hold my education over anyone else's knowledge.
Yeah.
I that's like I said, that's one of my biggest lessons I learned coming out of my MBA. I kind of thought I was all that in a bag of chips.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
got humbled very quickly by
Hmm.
people who, in some cases, didn't even have the same level of education I had.
Hmm.
But in business, they run circles around me.
Mm-hmm.
because of what they knew. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, okay, time to wake up, Frank. It's not
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
So when I started to realize that just because somebody has an education at some level with a piece of
Mm-hmm.
paper doesn't make them any smarter, any more intelligent.
It's true.
I've been asked before, like, who do you think's the smartest person you know? I'm like, going, what's the topic?
Yeah.
Everything's situational,
It
right?
is.
There is
It
no
is.
smartest person in the world because you
Yeah.
can take the smartest person in the world, ask them about a subject they know nothing of, and they'll look
Mm-hmm.
like an idiot,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Those are fun.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, no, what's
Yeah.
the topic? There are things that people know well.
So if you take, yeah, so if you take like you think about the pool of clients you've worked with, and now they're working with you, they're on this journey of reaching the end goal that they want, and sort of things are moving along the way. Where do they stub their toe? What's the stumbling blocks? What kind of mistakes do you see them make along the way? And the
So
reason I
one of
ask is so that people who are considering this, they be like, look, let's just get this out there so you kind of know what's coming or what might be coming for you.
biggest thing I see people do is they'll start crafting a vision and involving a leadership team. And then little by little, people start not participating. And then it starts reverting back to the
They
old
let
way.
it go.
They
Hmm.
just stop doing it. They'll
Hmm.
say, that weekly meeting we're doing, let's do it every other week. I don't think we're getting enough out of it. They're probably not running it right.
Mm.
These sorts of things. And
Hmm.
instead of reaching out, to us to say, hey, this doesn't feel like it's doing something where we can run an audit on it. We can sit in on one, listen to what they're doing and see
Yeah.
why aren't they doing that. Most people who would run a weekly meeting, after a while, they love these things because issues get raised and solved,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
that's the whole point of it. I mean, a leadership meeting is there to work on the business.
Hmm.
What's not working,
Hmm.
fix it and make it work again,
Yeah.
right? Because most people's source of frustration is when an expectation that they have gets unmet.
Yeah. Man,
And
it's so true.
expect
I remember in my large corporate days, new initiative X would be announced. Great fanfare, table cards and all the, tables in the cafeteria. It had a cool name, CEO would roll it out. And after a while, I just learned to watch. And I'm like, I'm going to do it because I've been asked to do it. I wonder if it's going to be here in 3 years because that seems to be the shelf life of all of these new initiatives. And it batted 1,000. And I was like, that's too bad. This is kind of cool, but I, yeah, it just
I see
kind
this
of
in dental practice all the
fades
time.
away. I don't know whatever that 3 years turns into in a smaller organization. I don't know, but it's just like it's the getting to the top and then staying there, right? It's the staying there that I just find most people don't seem to appreciate. Like in my
So
world, marketing, we're going to get to the top of rankings, but you got to stay there. It takes as much work to stay there as it does to get there, or appreciable. It doesn't stay on its own.
one of the things all the management systems out there, whether it's the EOS's, TSG, Scaling Up, eMyth, or any of the other ones that are out there, and
Right.
there are a lot of
Hmm.
systems. They all are very, very similar. But one of the things they have in common is the cadence and the cycle at which you refresh,
Mm.
which is every 90 days. You see this in corporate America. This is why K1s come out. This is why you always see quarterly earnings on the stock market.
Hmm.
And this, what it is you're looking at what are we focused on this quarter?
Hmm.
What are we trying to accomplish? And it should be tied to your annual goal, which should be tied to your 5-year goal, right?
Right.
What I work with dentists, I do 5-year, 2-year, 1 year, 90 days,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
The 5 years, so that we can kind of like if you're playing golf, it's like a par five. That
It's your
flag's way
vision.
out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't even really see it. You got to look around to kind of see it,
Right.
but it's out there.
Hmm.
And then you swing and you hit the club, right? Or you hit the ball and it lands somewhere.
Hmm.
And then your next shot might be different from day one to day two if you're playing the same course in 2 days. The reason is the ball didn't land in the same spot.
Hmm.
And so business is a lot like sailing.
Hmm.
When you want to get from point A to point B, you have to tack your way there because you get
Right.
off course and you correct. You
Yeah.
just keep correcting your course to get there. It's not like a speedboat where you put it down and just hammer the point.
Hmm.
So it's more like a sailboat.
Hmm.
And so every every opportunity to do another initiative or another thing is about let's try something, let's see what we get from it. And if we've achieved our result, great, we'll move on to other areas of the business that need help. If it
Right.
hasn't fully achieved it, the next quarter, let's try something additionally,
Right.
and to keep moving toward achieving the goal. So
Right.
when I have annual goals, each quarter I'm doing everything I can to see how can I hit those annual goals.
Hmm.
What pivots do I need to make? What new initiatives do I need to take on?
Hmm.
In the dental world, because of their CE credits, doctors have a tendency to get a lot of ideas. They get there, oh, we could do
It's
this,
true.
and we could do this, and we could do this. They'll come back, give
The
it to their
shiny
team.
object syndrome.
But what the team knows is what you just said.
Hmm.
just shortly ago. The team knows that if they wait the doctor out, they just slow walk the project. Eventually, they'll forget about it, and a
And
new
that's
one
how
will
you know
come
they're
in.
smarter than you are.
Exactly. Well, they learn.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, when you run a business, you're running an adult daycare center, right? It's just like kids. It's I always joke
They
about that. It's
watch.
like
It's true.
it's
Fairness.
it's
Fairness is a
because
huge thing.
just like a kid, employees will find the envelope and keep pushing it.
Hmm.
They're looking for the barriers and the boundaries. They're looking for that always. We all are.
Hmm.
And as business owners, we seek that too. How far can we push ourselves and that sort of thing? Well, an employee can push themselves to what can I absolutely do
Hmm.
that's going to still work for me, put me in a good light, but not kill me to do it.
Right.
Right. And so it's not that people are looking to do more, it's
Hmm.
people are looking to do what's expected of them and make themselves look good, only to the point that it's noticed. This is why, if you don't have a culture of recognition, people tend to get soft. They tend to stop doing
Mm.
because you don't appreciate somebody. It does not take long. Look what happens in personal relationships. When the appreciation falls away, they break up,
Yeah.
right? They don't stay together anymore. Why?
Yeah.
I don't feel appreciated. And that's
Yeah.
a term often said. Well, that's a business relationship too with your staff.
Hmm.
There's either appreciation or there isn't. And if your
Hmm.
culture doesn't have that as part of it, well, generally people become either stagnant or unhappy, right? Because
So is
happy people,
appreciation different than recognition? Is that what you're meaning? Or am I?
absolutely,
It is. Okay.
absolutely,
What do you mean?
absolutely. Yeah. So recognition would be I can give you an award for something, or I can give you a bonus on something. I could say, hey, good job, or something like that. When I'm talking about that appreciation, this is where you're doing like one-on-one talks and you're telling them what's working.
Hmm.
You're telling them, look, this is the things that you do great. We appreciate this about you. You're using that word about the things that you really admire
Hmm.
about their person, right? Also, in an appreciation based culture, somebody who has that built in that I'm seeking to always grow them, never to keep them in a place. You'll see sometimes in business where somebody's really good at something and whoever's above them want them to stay there forever.
Hmm.
I don't ever want to see you go beyond that because you're making my life so much easier.
Hmm.
Somebody who truly appreciates what somebody's doing
Yeah.
should be looking out for their interests and say, how can I grow you?
Yeah.
What can I do to personally
Totally.
grow?
I'm just having such flashes to my large corporate life because you're right. I got a bonus. We all did. And I said, thanks. It's great. But that was
And
it.
yet, and you may have not even understood your role in it. How
Oh, I
did that
did. I
get to
knew that
you?
most of it was out of my control.
Yeah.
And the higher I climbed, the less and less of it was in my control. But it
Hmm.
was the appreciation part that was
Right.
I'll say lacking. And when some of it was given, I mean, the cultures were just not going to go down this tangent, but the individual saying it to me, I usually believed, but sitting behind that person was the rest of the organization. It's like, look, unless you have no brain, you see this is how this place works, and thank you for that bit of appreciation. But you're on an island, and so I take it for what it is, and thanks for the bonus, and
Yeah.
I'm no happier than I was the day before. So,
Well,
you know,
absolutely. And the money only lasts. Like whenever somebody gets money, that only lasts as long as they've adjusted to it.
yeah.
Once they've adjusted to it, like people say, like, oh, why do they want to leave? Well, they don't make enough money, and you give them a raise. Within 2 to 3 pay periods, they've gotten used to that, and
Hmm.
they don't make enough money again.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
what I can tell you is, when it's money, it's not about money.
Hmm.
There's other things going on.
Yeah.
Happy people don't leave.
Yeah.
If there was a solid culture, one of appreciation,
Hmm.
one of teamwork, one of camaraderie, one of we do this together, one
Yeah.
of helpfulness, and that
And
sort of
it's
thing.
fair. I saw an article recently, and I'm going to get some of this wrong, but when they talked about, it was all about fairness in the workplace, and they were talking about, you know, it wasn't that they were the highest paid in their market or their area or something like that. It was that within the organization, the it, it was fair. Like it was, compared to each other. And that's and I'm getting I'm sort of I know I'm leaving a lot of gaps, but just to reinforce the point is I don't need to be paid the highest. I just need to feel like it's fair.
Right,
And you can't pay me the lowest, but
right,
if two people work next to each other and one's making a significant multiple of the other one, but it seems like, well, why is it? It doesn't seem fair, and that's what ticks them off and stays ticked off. and you can appreciate them as, and it's funny. It's like, well, let me appreciate you. Well, if you appreciate me so much, how come there's such a disparity, right? So it's, and just, a good intention just blows up in your face. So the fairness thing was a big part. Not to send you down this path. I was like, what people really want seems to be seldom intersecting with what they're given. So, you know,
Absolutely.
and
Well,
yeah, it just makes things harder.
that was pronounced with COVID.
Mm,
So what happened is the labor market took a wild swing.
hmm
Before COVID, in the dental space, finding resources was pretty easy to do.
mm,
Post COVID, one of the more difficult resources to find was hygienists. They were
still.
demanding $10, $15 an hour more than what they were currently being paid. And so they were jumping ship pretty quickly in many organizations. Or worse yet, somebody who just got hired in, let's say you've got three hygienists and they hire in a fourth, and they find out that one that was just hired in makes more than the other three
Not
who have
fair.
got time with you.
Yeah.
So my advice at the time when I would talk with my clients, I'm like going, look, if you're up against that, you have to do, this is the analysis I want you to run. You can take a happy person and make them unhappy real fast by doing something like that. Now,
hmm
what would be the right thing to do? If you want to invest in this new hygienist coming in, then you need to invest in the three you have also.
hmm
Because what's going to happen is those three are going to find out and they're going to eventually leave, and you're going to be hiring new people in like this, and you'll lose the continuity you had.
And with the new hires, you're going to pay more anyway.
You're going to pay,
So
that's
why
the
don't you just
market
pay it,
rate.
nay it, yeah.
And I always ask them this: what is the cost of not having that resource? So, like in hygiene, they are the lead gen of the dental
hmm
practice. People come in for their cleaning and they get an exam, and this is where all the work comes from.
Yeah,
Barring it being an emergency where they come in, I chip my tooth
sure.
kind of. Barring emergencies, it's typically found through a cleaning, and then now you start to discover the need for a crown or a root canal or a this or a that, and or even orthodontics or whatever it might be. So this is the
hmm
gateway. It's kind of like, it doesn't mean it's completely a lost leader, but if I take a hygienist off of my schedule, and let's say there are, 4 days a week, 8 hours, 32 hours a week,
hmm
and they're hour-long appointments, that's 32 patients I don't see
hmm
in that week.
hmm
And that's 32 per week for every week I don't have that hygienist there.
hmm
So when people are, when doctors are saying, I can't pay them the $60 they want, my other ones are only making 47. I'm like, well, what if they all made 60?
Yeah.
I said, but let me ask you this. What if they all left?
hmm
What's that? This is what you're evaluating. So the clients that followed my advice that said, if you're going to bring somebody in at 60, you make the other ones all 60 immediately.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Yeah.
Say,
And
look,
by the way, the scenario in which they don't find out is zero.
that doesn't happen. They
It's
always find
just,
out.
yeah. I
They
mean,
always,
even if they never found out from the new one telling them, if they have half a brain, they're going to look around at the market and go, wow, it seems like 60 is the new 47. And they just brought this one in. I'll bet she's at 60 or close to it. And they're
typically
probably
when
right,
there's when you're adding somebody in, people do look, right? Especially if they're the ones
Yeah.
trying to help their friends get jobs. Well,
hmm
they're kind of looking to see who's out there, and they're looking to see what the command is, and then
Yeah.
it's easy to. And most people are wise enough; they know if you go to salary.com, you can go find out what your
Of
market
course you
rates
can.
are.
And maybe they've looked
It's
themselves. Yeah, of course. So this is great. I mean, it's funny what this conversation has shown me is that talking about orderly versus chaotic growth ought to be a lot longer because there's so many facets to it. However, here in practice care, where we want to have more of the digestible, bite-sized business advice, got to have you back on
sure.
again. We could talk
Yeah.
about part two or three. There's two wrap-up questions I ask every guest.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is with that lead in not helping. Is there anything you think we should have talked about, or I should have asked you, but I just didn't think to ask you?
Um, it maybe perhaps one of the questions is if I have a business, what does this look like for me? I mean, what if I
Mhm.
already think I have how do I know that what I think I'm doing isn't getting me where I want to go
Yeah.
if I think I'm getting where I want to go?
hmm
And so one of the ways that I always would like when I ask people questions is we run them through assessments typically, right?
Yeah.
And this is common for all consultants.
Sure.
You'll see assessments all the time, right?
Yes.
They'll ask you a series of questions, but one of the things we're trying to drive down to is, do you have the freedom in life to do the things you want to do?
Mm,
Or do you feel like you are a slave to your business?
hmm.
And so, uh, Kiyosaki, when he did the cash flow quadrant, and hopefully people have read that, but I'm finding a lot haven't.
Yeah, no.
It should be it should be required in high school. That's
Hmm.
like I
Amen.
drive my son to read that book.
Amen. Yes, that's a great idea.
So, and it's because they don't understand the difference of owning a job and owning a business.
Hmm.
And if they're unable to take a vacation for a month, like a Mediterranean cruise, be gone for a month and have more money in the bank than when they left, you don't have a business, you have a job.
Good job. Yep.
And knowing that and understanding that. So a lot of people think that everything's going well because they make good money
Hmm.
and life feels good. But there's a lot of things when I ask them, if you won the lottery, what would be the top 5 things you would do? And it's almost always these long exotic vacations and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm going, well, the business you're in, you won the lottery.
Hmm.
You just didn't win at the time.
Yeah.
You have zero time to do this. It's not like you can't afford it.
Yeah.
If you wanted to take a month-long vacation, you could write the check,
Yeah. It's the
but
time.
you can't spend the time on it.
Yeah.
That's how you know your business has you and you don't have your business.
Right. And for some, you know what? They just may want to craft the most awesome job and they're happy with it. But for those who are not, then this is the beginning of it.
And
Um,
the other element of that ties into it is they think about themselves, but they're not necessarily thinking about their staff. Their
mm,
staff, this is where they make their living. If you stay and you keep and run this quote unquote lifestyle business, what cost is it to the staff to be able to stay with you? Because where's their upside?
mm,
Where is their chance to? Because a rising tide lifts all boats. We all know this, right?
mm,
If business makes more, you can pay more out to your staff.
mm.
What if it just stays flat and you want to keep making what you're making?
Yeah.
And a lot of guys build these out. You'll see a lot of these dental offices, they're open, 8 to 4, Monday through Thursday. And that's the world. And they're going, oh, but they have this nice lifestyle. I'm like going, and their pay is roughly just going up, not even beating inflation in the last 3 years.
Hmm.
And like they can buy less with their money.
Hmm.
And they either have to make the decision that I need to go somewhere else or just take it in the shorts and just expect that I can do less now
Yeah.
and do that sort of stuff. So when I look at a business owner, my hope, my prayer for them is that they look at it as an opportunity to do good for other people too. And it's
Mm,
not just for themselves.
yeah.
It's
And
like,
so, and so maybe that's a lead into the other question. Um, the other wrap up question I ask is, all right, so we've caught a listener's attention. They, I don't know, they've been thinking about growth, but they're stuck or they're sort of stuck in chaos land or whatever it is. And they're listening to you. They're saying, you know what, I want to turn the corner on this or get started. But sometimes people don't know how to get started. They're just really enthusiastic, but they're stuck at the starting line. So, what are one or two simple, super simple, practical things they could do as soon as they're done listening to get going down this path and get off the starting line?
so it's mindset and action. So for mindset, the first thing I would highly recommend, I'm a big fan of the work that Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy did with their books. The two
Okay.
books that I highly recommend are Who Not How, because what it
Okay.
starts talking about is we all have expertise, right? There's a premise behind this, right? We all have expertise,
Hmm.
and there are also areas that we don't.
Hmm.
Now, because we're smart people, we think we can do everything.
Hmm.
And by reading this book, I think what it does is it starts to set the mindset that says this: if somebody else can do this at a better quality and faster than I can do it, well, they're saving me time.
Hmm.
Every person you get to do something for you is a shortcut to you getting the result you want.
Hmm.
Now, if you don't have the money, if you're early in your career, sometimes you have to bull through it. You put the bulldozer and drive and you just go and you
Right.
do it.
Right.
But when you have the money and you're not doing that, you are doing yourself a disservice
Hmm.
by not hiring people to take care of these things for you,
Yeah.
right? I mean, let's
Yeah.
face it, I could probably do my own root canal. It would be a mess. It would
Terrible.
be the worst thing that
Yes.
had ever happened to me in my life, but I
Yes.
could read the book and learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I go to an expert like a doctor who knows how to do that if that's what I need?
Hmm.
And they save me time. They're going to get it done. It's going to get done right. And everything's going to go. I play hockey. We always say root canal is nothing more than a check in the boards, right? Right. So that one. And then the other book that's a complement to that is The Gap in the Game.
Mm.
Too many people focus on what they fall short of and they fail to recognize the gain they made along the way.
Yeah.
Oh, we're supposed to do 2.5 million this year. We only did 2.3. That sucks. Oh man, bummer. It's like, well, what'd you do last year? Two. So you did 300 more than you did
Yeah.
last, and you're upset.
Yeah.
Like it's like they fail to celebrate the victories that are given to them,
Hmm.
even though they had desires to hit something, an ideal,
Yeah.
hit something bigger. So those two books, Gap in the Game,
Okay.
Not How, is a great mindset thing, gets them going,
Okay.
right? And then action. Stop doing everything yourself. Start looking for where can I get the results I'm looking for in the marketplace? Who can do some of these things that I would want to do?
Hmm.
Shorten the time for that. Because
Hmm.
if I take it on myself, I have to learn it, try it, do it, and then I have to assess whether or not it was effective or not with no basis,
Yep.
right? I don't have the
Yep.
background to do it. If it's the first time I've done it, I only
Yep.
have myself to compare it to.
Yep.
If I bring somebody
And if
in,
I suck at it but don't know it, then I
right?
just suck a little
Some,
less if I put, but it still sucks.
you nailed it on the head because more
Yeah, the
often,
least sucky is not good.
right? What we do is not as good as we think it is,
Yes.
unless it's
Yes.
in the area of expertise,
Right.
right? I know like with myself when I coach clients and I work with them, the epiphanies they often have come from the realization that they're learning something they didn't know, but what they're also learning is they don't have to be the one to do it. The
Yeah.
best advice I ever got in my MBA came from an economics professor who said, "Look, guys," because somebody was struggling with something. He said, "Look, guys, let me make this clear.
Hmm.
Figure out what you do really well and hire the rest.
Hmm.
All going to do well financially, all of
Hmm.
you,
Hmm.
but you will have a happy life if you focus on the things you already do well."
Yeah.
And he goes, "School has messed you up since you were in kindergarten because
Yes.
when you get your
And so does
grades,
every performance appraisal you ever
you
gone
get your
through.
A, and your C. What do your parents tell you? Hey, what's up with the C?
Yeah.
Right? This is the gap in the game mindset, right? Look at all those A's.
Hmm.
In school, they make you work on the C. Why don't you excel on the A's? Like me, I was
Yeah.
always high in math, but low in the other areas.
Yeah. It's
Why
funny.
not
I
accelerate
know
that?
you're right, and I benefit from my wife being a teacher, but we look at the scene, we go, look, as far as you know, did you do the best you could do? Yeah. Well, maybe you're a C in this. I mean,
Maybe that's all you want.
is life going to stop? No, you
Right.
wouldn't choose a path towards the C, whatever that was anyway. It's going to solve itself.
Exactly.
So maybe so as long as you do your best, you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I mean, with everything I did the best I knew I could do. Okay. What do you say? I mean, there's not
Yeah.
much more to say. Yeah.
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 But
For
you're
people
right.
who
Most it's work on the C. Well, maybe I
it is, and
suck at
there's no
that, and I
interest
will
on it.
eternally suck at that. And yeah.
Same here. I,
Yeah.
I get to do what I really like to do. Like I'm a very good discerner. So as a coach, when I work with people, I'm pretty good at hearing ideas and then sort of giving
Yeah.
them feedback on how to maybe tweak it, improve it, or even just say flat out, I don't know why you'd want to do that.
Yeah.
It just
Like
doesn't.
when I was in business school, like, I can do marketing math, which is very simple math, but like the quant jocks, the investment bankers, I stayed one semester behind them in every finance class because I'm like, I know what I know, and it's a B when I'm with other marketing folks, and it's a D
Right.
minus when I'm with the quant jocks
Yes.
because of the curve. So I think I'll
Right.
just, and I'm not going down that path. I want to learn and I need to know it, but I think I'll just take the gentler environment and call it what it is. And so, yeah, you're
So
totally
that's
right.
those are the two things. Get your mindset right
Okay.
and take action. Start figuring out what
Hmm.
do you really excel at and just hire the rest.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Find
Yeah.
out who can I get to do this for me, right?
Yep.
The who, not how gets that mindset right.
Hmm.
And then use trusted people. I mean, use resources and stuff. May have people who would recommend others and stuff like that. Don't
Yeah.
just wing it. It's not a yellow pages thing. That's old
Yeah.
school. If you got younger listeners on here,
You're
yellow
right. Or
pages
the
was a
online
thing,
version. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right. It does matter to get recommendations from people that have been there, done that, and people that you can trust to
Hmm.
get the results you're hoping to get.
Right. Perfect. Excellent. Good advice. Easy to do. Get a couple books and read them, and then ask yourself, do I feel this? Because if you feel stuck and you feel that, then maybe you're onto something. So thank you, Frank. Thanks for coming on Practice Care, opening up to this. This has been great. Really, really valuable. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
You supplied some contact information for you, so we're going to get that into the show notes for your episode. So now
Sure.
somebody's got another way to contact you if they want to. Couple of points before we wrap up today. First, if you're someone like Frank or someone like us and you seek to help private practice owners, or if you're a private practice owner yourself and you've got some experience on the business side of private practice you think others would benefit from, either way, please, we want you to come on Practice Care and tell the world about it. In the show notes for Frank's episode and every episode, there's a link, a couple of clicks, really easy. Tell us what's on your mind so we can get you scheduled as soon as possible. And finally, please subscribe to Practice Care. It's one word. We're easy to find. We do a new episode every week, and the easiest way to stay up to date with those episodes is to subscribe. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. We're easy to find. We're on every player. Just search and subscribe, and you'll be all set. Thanks very much, and until next time.